Hey everyone, so I want to talk about Solarization mechanic, which was introduced in Judgment of the Rogue Planet. So it's a very generic new mechanic that can support a lot of older rulers with the cards introduced in the set. And it was also used for the High Gods which were released, which are retrains of the new Bahala cluster, which we'll cover later in the video. So as you can see, Solarization reads, as you play this card, you may put a non-magic stone card that shares an attribute with this card from removed area on the bottom of your deck. If you do, you may pay one less to play this card. So in this example, it's a 1, but essentially it can be any X value for Solarization. There's a whole cycle of Solarization commons or normals that go with the mechanic. So these two in particular are very cool, and they're essentially in each color. So they have a 2-cost resonator that can essentially be played for 0, so you play 1 less for the attribute of the card if your starting ruler is the same attribute, and then you can use the Solarization mechanic to pay 1 less. So essentially you'll play these cards for 0. So both of these are essentially going to pay for their Solarization because on enter they're going to remove the top card of your deck from the game. The additions are pretty cool in general for all the colors because they're going to provide some sort of control effect. So for example, the light Solarisation addition is going to rest one of your opponent's resonators, and it's not going to recover during the recovery phase. And it also gets removed at the end of the turn, so you essentially net 1 removed card for your Solarization effects. There's also a cycle of Solarized cards, which are going to have effects based on their color attribute. So all of these have Solarization 3, so you're going to bottom deck 3 cards from your removed area, and then they'll have an effect based on their color attribute. Red's going to burn, blue is going to bounce, black is going to force a discard, white is going to destroy a rested non-magic stone entity, and green is going to recover one of your entities. So these are cool effects, but they tend to be removed area cards in your removed area negative. So if you want to use some of the better Solarization cards, I wouldn't really recommend these. Also in the commons, there's a cycle of giants, which will all have the same effect in every color. They're going to essentially remove the top 3 cards in your deck. You're going to choose 1 to add to your hand, and then when they die, you also add 1 of your remove cards to your hand. So they're cool, but they're not very efficient for what they're going to cost you. So they're more for limited and such. There's also Solarization token generators, which are all going to do a different effect depending on what color, which are pretty cool, but they're also going to be essentially negative and remove cards for Solarization. So it's up to you if you want to try and make a strategy around them. So as part of the rares for Solarization, you're going to have the different regalia for the Clash of Star Tree rulers. So these are all similar. They're all going to be 2 cost with Solarization 1, so you can play them for 1 essentially, and their abilities are going to be reminiscent of their respective rulers. So for example, Protuberance is going to be drawing you 2 cards on enter, discarding a card, and then it also removes a card from the top of your deck from the game, essentially refueling the Solarization mechanic. And then they also are going to have a tap ability when you reach either 6 removed cards, or it also factors in essentially their main mechanics. So for Protuberance, if you have blazing skills in your graveyard, is going to factor towards that 6. So once you have those 6, you can tap it, and if you have the regalia in your sideboard, you'll essentially make a copy of the J ruler side. And then if you have the chronal gear, you can stack that on top of your J ruler, on top of your Clash of Star Tree J ruler. And now it's going to have the abilities of the J ruler that came in, as well as the abilities of the chronal gear. So example, for Brandheart, he's going to have a swiftness and first strike, and then he's going to deal 400 damage whenever you play a blazing skill. He can play a blazing skill from your graveyard by paying red and paying its cost. Then he'll get the effects of the chronal gear, so whenever he taps, he'll be able to add a fire card in your removed area to your hand, and then he'll be able to tap to deal damage to your opponent equal to the attack of a target resonator. Just keep in mind that the Solarization regalia are a little awkward in that you can't run them if you're actually running the Clash of Star Tree rulers as your starting rulers, so just be aware. So I want to go over the Replicants, which are essentially retrains of the High Gods from the new Valhalla cluster. So there are quite a few of them, so let's go ahead and start out with Odin. So the original Odin, he was a 6-cost resonator. He had flying. You can discard your hand to recover this card, and then Faith, if you had an astral ruler, he was able to destroy all of your opponent's magic stones. So for this set, he actually got a retrain, and now the new Odin, he has Solarization 2, and he has 3 cost white, black, black, so you can essentially play him with 2 for Solarization. And the retrain has Flying and Pierce, and then Enter. If you use the Solarization mechanic to cast him, you can destroy all your opponent's special magic stones as long as they have 3 or more of them. He also has essentially a quick effect ability, so you can remove Resonator in your graveyard. If they're light, they gain +2/+2 to your whole field. If it's dark, you make your opponent's field get -2/-2 for each Resonator you're removing. So this is cool because it also fuels the next Solarization card that you decide to cast. The next card is Replicant Alice, which is essentially a retrain of 2 cards. So it's a retrain of Alice Zeus Incarnate as well as Tales of Fantasia. So the original Alice had a continuous ability where if you control essentially one of every card type in your graveyard, you would get +2 Drain, Eternal for Strike, Flying, Precision, Swiftness. And she had an activate ability where if you pay one of every color, you get to remove any target entity from the game. Tales of Fantasia allowed you to look at the top number of cards in your deck equal to the number of Regalia you control, and then allow you to cast 1 Resonator, 1 Chant, and 1 Addition among them. The new Replicant Alice has something similar, so instead of your graveyard, it counts cards in your removed area, so if you have one of each, you're going to get +4/+4 and the different keywords. And it has the activated ability, so if you pay 1 of each attribute, you can put essentially any entity in the bottom of your owner's deck. If it's a magic stone, it goes under their magic stone deck. And then it has that Tales of Fantasia Enter. Only in this case, you reveal top 3, and you can play any number of Resonators among them into the field if you use Solarization. If not, they're going to be going to your hand. The original Kaguya from the new Valhalla cluster was a 3-cost Resonator with Quick Cast that allowed you to cancel target spell. If you had Rune 2, you can play her for 1 less, so essentially you'd be playing her for 2 will. The new Replicant Kaguya is a 4-cost with Solarization 2, so you also are able to play her for 2 will, and she will cancel target spell. If you paid her with Solarization, you also remove the top card of your deck from the game, so this is fueling you for other Replicant cards or Solarization cards in the future. She has actually a really cool, unique ability where you can put a non-magic stone card that shows an attribute this card from your removed area in the bottom of your deck, and you can produce Moon Will, and you can use this will to pay the activated abilities of any Kaguyas, essentially, so the rulers or resonators, which is a kind of cool way to support older cards. And this card specifically has an activated ability where you can pay Moon Will to cancel a target automatic ability. So a really cool card. The original Genshi Tenshin had a very clunky kind of effect, honestly. So if you had their Dragon Emblem cards, which you get from his kind of archetype or his Enter ability, you would gain +4 damage to any of your fire sources if you have the Fire Dragon Emblem. And if you had the Water Dragon Emblem, you would be able to draw a card at the end of the turn. So the new Genshi Tenshin kind of makes this a lot more practical, where instead of the emblems, you're using your will coin kind of to fuel these abilities. So first of all, it's a 3-cost Resonator with Solarization 1, so you can play him for blue-red if you bottom deck a card. Also, if he's solarized, he can't be cancelled, and he has the ability, if you a fire source would deal damage, it deals that much +4. As long as you have a will coin, and then you also draw a card at the end of the turn if you have a will coin. He also has a Enter ability where if you don't have a will coin, he's actually going to recycle you or re-add you a will coin for red or blue. The original Nyarlathotep was a 2-cost red-white Resonator. She had an Enter Awakening ability where you can pay X will and put that many fire moons into the field. Then she had a couple banish abilities with moons. If you banish 1 moon, you can prevent the next damage that would be dealt to this card. You can banish a moon to deal 800 damage to target to your Resonator, or you can banish 9 moons to give this card +4/+4 in Pierce, which was essentially kind of its win con. You can gain Swiftness and Precision as long as you have a Moon Edition. The new Replicant Nyarlathotep is a 6-cost Resonator with Solarization 4, and it's going to automatically have the Swiftness Pierce. It also has Bloodlust to where it has to attack every turn. So now instead of paying into an Awakening, on Enter it's automatically going to put 4 Fire Moons into the field. If you use Solarization, you're going to put 6 Fire Moons, so it really fuels itself for the most part. If you banish Moon, it has the same prevent damage ability, and it also cannot lose its abilities. You can banish a moon to deal 800 damage to a Resonator, and then if you banish 10 moons, it's going to gain +4/+4, and you recover the card for the turn. The original Athenia was a 3-cost resonator. It was black, green, and void. It had an enter of choose Harvest or Corrupt. If you choose Harvest, you recover up to 3 magic stones. If you choose Corrupt, rest all magic stones your opponent controls. It had a Rune 1 where you would be able to play both abilities instead. And then it had 2 activated abilities. One where you pay green to put any number of cards from your graveyard at the bottom of your deck, or pay black to remove all cards your opponent graveyard from the game. The new Replicant Athenia is a 5-cost resonator with Solarisation 3. It has Drain and Bane, and then again, similar to the other card, instead of using the Harvest and Corrupt mechanic, you're going to have an enter where if you played it with Solarisation, you're going to be able to use both of the abilities, and then you have the 2 abilities which are banish up to 5 special magic stones, put the top X cards of your magic stone deck into the field, where X is the number of magic stones you banish this way, or you can rest up to 5 target entities your opponent controls. Then the 2 different activated abilities this time around is green, shuffle all magic stone cards from your graveyard into your magic stone deck. You gain Y life and draw Y cards, where Y is the number of magic stones moved this way, and it has a revenge effect. So this is when you have an entity leave your field this turn, you pay black, remove target resonator from the game, search your opponent's deck, graveyard, and hand for all cards that share a name with the chosen target, and remove them from the game. And you can only do that during main timing and once per turn. So next we're going to go over the Shiva resonator. So this one's actually really amazing for the retrain. So the original Shiva, you can reveal it outside of the game, and then you're able to play it as long as it's revealed. To play it, you would rest 3 recovered Mumu Tribe resonators. Then you would have to have a Wind Magic Stone and a Fire Magic Stone to put it into the field. Then on enter, it would destroy 3 resonators at random, and it would put +1/+1 counters on itself, equal to the cost of the resonators destroyed. So it's a bit unreliable, but the new Replicant Shiva is super cool. So it's a 3-cost resonator, Solarisation 1, so you can play it for green-red. It has Belligerence, Precision, and Eternal. So on enter, it could already attack another resonator. It has Eternal, so it's very hard to destroy, or at least harder to destroy. Same ability where you can reveal it from outside the game, and you're able to play it as long as it's revealed. So this time there's no awkward conditions to play it. And on enter, it's going to deal damage to each resonator your opponent controls, equal to the resonator's attack. If you use Solarisation to play it, you will just automatically destroy up to 3 resonators your opponent controls. And then one of the really cool parts is when this card destroys a resonator, it's going to put +1/+1 counters on all of your resonators, where X is the number, or the total cost of the destroyed resonator. So kind of real cool finisher and just control card always available, especially to any green-red deck. So very cool. The original Deus Ex Machina was the 2-cost, green-blue, and on enter, it would essentially double up all the counters on the field. So it would take any number of counters on entities you control, and add double the +1/+1 counters on this card. As long as there were 10 or more counters on it, it would have Flying and Eternal, and you can remove a counter from this card and put a counter of any name onto another target resonator. The new retrained Deus Ex Machina is a 3-cost replicant, green, blue, void, Solarisation 1. It's going to have Flying and Barrier Chant, and the same kind of ability to where when it comes in, it's going to remove any number of counters on entities you control and put double the counters. But if you played it with Solarisation, you're going to be putting triple the number of counters on this card. And then it has the same kind of ability where you can remove a 1/1 counter from this card, put 2 1/1 counters on any other entity you control, as long as there's 5 or more counters on this card. And then a cool ability that was added onto this, you can remove Y number of +1 counters, return this card to your hand, and then search your deck for a machine with the total cost Y equal to the number of counters you removed, and put it into the field, only during main timing. So cool new effect for this card, and just a cool retrain for the original Deus Ex. So the original Perfect Loki had, first of all, to play, it had an ability where when you're judgmenting Loki, you can kind of just put this on top of your judgmented Loki for free. It would give you Divinity Infinity and Imperishable. So that's kind of irrelevant to the new retrain, but essentially it had an enter to look at the top 10 cards of your deck. You'll put 1 into your hand, the rest into your graveyard. Then it would gain 100 defense for each card in your graveyard. And it would also on enter give a minus X 100 defense to your opponent's resonators, where X is the number of cards in your graveyard. So it's kind of a board wipe at quick cast speed. The new Replicant Loki is a 4-cost, so it's a black blue and 2 void, Solarization 2, so you can play for 2 with quick cast. And then on enter, it has the same kind of ability where your opponent's resonators are going to get -1/-1 for each card in your graveyard until end of turn, so another instant speed board wipe. Then if you played it with Solarization, you're going to put X 1/1 counters on this card, where X is the number of cards in your graveyard divided by 2. And then now this time around, kind of different effect. So it has an active ability, blue-black. Look at the top white cards of your deck. You're going to reveal a card with cost Y or less, and where Y is the number of magic stones you control, and put it into your hand, the rest into the graveyard. And this is once per turn. And then it has another ability where you can return this card from your graveyard to your hand at the end of the turn, essentially whenever it's put into the graveyard. Finally, we have Replicant Dante. So I don't even want to go over the original. It was Satan originally, but his effect's kind of a paragraph. So if you want to read that, go ahead and read the card. But the new Replicant Dante, it's a 3-cost resonator, so black-red, Solarization 1, so you can play it for 2, has barrier white and barrier black. On enter, it's going to make both players' life total become 3,000, which is good against any of the decks that have a higher starting total. And then it also makes it so players can't gain life until end of turn, but if you solarized it, players cannot gain life until the end of game. So cool ability. And then it has a continuous ability. When an effect you control causes you to lose life or pay life for a cost, you're going to be putting a falling counter on each non-magic stone entity your opponent controls. You can pay black and pay 1,000 life, and then each entity with 3 or more falling counters loses all abilities to end of turn, and then you can destroy all of those entities and remove all falling counters from all entities. So kind of a slow board wipe, but essentially it's going to be destroying all your opponent's entities. So again, cool card. I don't know how practical this is in reality, but it's still cool to see. So sorry about that. So it went a lot longer than I expected. There was a lot of replicants and they all have pretty extensive abilities. But overall, I mean, I was just really excited for these replicant retrains. They're all super cool and I can't wait to start brewing different decks with them. And I hope to see a lot of different deck profiles taking advantage of these resonators for their strategies. So thank you guys for watching.